When we prospect with integrity, we will get customers who have integrity. Integrity is the foundation from which everything is built on.
You better understand value. But at the end of the day, sales is a relationship business. It is a people business. It is an emotional business.
This is Sales Logic.
This is Sales Logic. Well, it is Saturday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern. I'm hanging out here with my partner, Mark Hunter. You know what time it is. It is time for Sales Logic. So, Mark, we got a good show today, right?
We have got a great show, especially coming off the anniversary show. A lot of comments from people, so it's great. But hey, the topic today is secrets to getting the decision maker's attention. We're going to really dive in on that. Got a great question that kind of supports that. And our lightning round. Top 10 best ways to close out the first quarter. So let's dive into the topic. How do we get to that decision maker? What's the secret?
Yeah, Mark, I just got a comment, with the lightning round, the fact that we are, talking about closing out first quarter. I mean, this has come so fast, right? I mean, boy, I just cannot believe we are basically headed into the end of February, kicking off March, end of the year. But let's talk about customer facing time. Now, I wasn't exactly sure on this topic which direction we were going to go. Is it about freeing more time up in your schedule so that you can have more time in front of, the customer, or is it trying to get their attention? So I'm going to lean into this idea of trying to get their attention, and maybe in a future show we can talk the other way. But I think one of the most important ways to get somebody's attention is to give something rather than being there to get something. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people reach out to me and they want me to do something for them, which I'm more than willing to do. But I think to myself, every time you reach out to me, you want something from me. It's never about reaching out to see how you could basically help me. And I think as salespeople, that's our main word, right? We're there to help. And far too often, we're trying to get the customer's attention by getting them to help us. And I think we need to flip that around and think, what can I do to help them?
You've got to serve first. We have to deliver value, especially the further up in the food chain you go, because if all you're doing is trying to take, you are just a peddler of the absolute worst sense. And no, that's not where we want to be. It really is. This is about understanding who it is that you're looking to have a conversation with. And how do you bring value to them? How do they help you? Because what you want to do is you want to do two things. A, you have to demonstrate to them that you can help them. And two, in so doing, they have to see that you're a person that is worthy of being, having a conversation with. Because otherwise, no, they can shut you down. Because remember, there's nothing that anybody offers that somebody else doesn't offer. You have to find a way to stand out from the crowd.
Yeah, I also think that really starting to think about what do you offer that nobody else offers? Like, I think to myself, every time I make a sales call, 10 other speakers are making that same sales call. If I'm lucky, it's only ever 10 other speakers. So why, of the very limited time they have, why would they give it to me? And if you want to get customers' attention, you need to be able to answer the question, like, why would I give you my time? Why would that be valuable for me?
And remember, so often, again, they're doing their work before they talk to you. In other words, they're checking you out. In other words, we've said this line 1,000 times, but it's so relevant. Our reputation arrives before we do. And it is amazing. But again, this is where Bryn is jumping in. And I love Bryn's comment. What is LinkedIn saying about you? What are you saying about yourself on LinkedIn? Again, we have to have this air of credibility before we can even have the conversation. And the conversation has got to be centered around them first before we can even begin to think about the ask for us.
Yeah, so I think it's important too, if you want to get more customer facing time, I mean, you've got to do what Bryn is saying here too, and you've got to warm that customer up. You've got to warm that prospect up. If you're reaching out trying to get an appointment, have they heard of you? Have you commented on their link posts? Have you sent them things that would be of value to them?
I love this because also the further up you go in the food chain, the more relationships matter. And again, if you look at people in the C-suite or close to the C-suite, they are connecting with other people in other C-suites and other areas. And again, it really comes down to those proximity of the relationships that you have. That is absolutely spot on. Thank you so much, Bryn, for making the comment about the book. Yeah, you're right. It's love it.
I got mine in the mail yesterday too. When I get home last night, I was going through mail about 8 o'clock, and my Mark's new book popped in. So look for posts on that today. Terry Brock is weighing in with some great stuff. And Terry, I'd love to know your opinion. If we want to know how to give value first, then we need to study where our prospects and customer have questions. So what AI do we need to be looking to that's going to help us really, really understand what questions they've got? Which leads me to another thing. Like, I think if you can have some element of, I don't know how to say it, for lack of a better way to put it, I'll say like an element of surprise. Like, I'm reaching out to Mark and I want to get his attention. And I'd say, Mark, do you know people in your industry who do these 3 things drive sales by 35%? Now, all of a sudden, he's like, whoa, now that's interesting. I may be interested in talking to Meridith.
That is so true. And again, this is where AI can help us do the homework. Now, let's keep in mind something. AI is going to give us an answer. Whether or not it's the right answer, that's a whole nother story. But it's going to give us, and it's going to spark our curiosity. And what is that going to do? It's going to lead us to some more questions, some more thinking. Minimally, it preps us with questions that we can begin to share. Are we going to walk in as the expert? No, we're not going to walk in as the expert. But can we have enough knowledge to gain that decision maker's attention? Because again, this is the other key thing. What motivates the decision maker? You've got to be able to understand. And generally, again, depending on the company, smaller companies, everybody does everything. In a small company, the CEO is the chief everything officer. In a big company, it truly is the executive officer. But what does this person typically do? What are their areas of responsibility? And again, the more you can do background to help you understand that, the more relevant you can be in terms of the questions and the comments that you are going to share.
Yeah. Terry is chiming in here. He said, basically use Gemini and ChatGPT in deep research to find out what they need. Be sure to check social groups like Facebook, Reddit, and other places where people are saying what they really think. This is gold for us to know about them. So true. I think another thing that you can do if you want to get, more customer facing time, get their attention even more, is that you can borrow credibility. I do this all the time. And what I mean by that is that I'll really early in the email follow-up, because I call people all the time, but nobody ever answers, I'll send an email out, but a testimonial is really, really high in that email. They don't have to go 1 or 2 lines before they hit the testimonial, because all of a sudden, I'm somebody they don't know reaching out. I may be hitting the points, but wow, if somebody from Berkshire Hathaway has hired Meridith, has worked with Meridith, now this might be worth my time and energy.
And I love that, especially if it's within the industry that they're in. And, in other words, if you're pulling it from somebody within their industry or somebody who has a title similar to them, again, it's absolutely, this is why referrals are an excellent way in. Now, don't go name dropping unless you really have the authority to name drop. But it is amazing how when you begin dancing with high level people, with the right people, and you develop the right relationships, they allow you to name drop. It's okay, but you have to get that permission before you name drop.
Yeah, I think another way to do it too is to come at them from different angles. Like, maybe sometimes you reach out on LinkedIn, like Bryn says. Maybe sometimes you reach out with a phone call. Maybe sometimes you reach out with, email. Sometimes you use a testimonial. Sometimes you shoot a video. You maybe use a voice note in LinkedIn versus the next time you comment on their, on a post they have. So trying lots of different angles to try to get their attention.
And use other people in that organization. In other words, you're trying to get one person's attention. That's great. Okay, fine, great. But you may have to develop relationships, or at least start to trying to have relationships with 5, 6, 8, 10 other people in the organization. I see this a lot with organizations I work with, because that ultimate decision maker, they're behind closed doors. So I reach out to other people, develop relationships, and they can carry me in. Now, here's the challenge. That's going to lengthen the runway. Absolutely. But if it's a big enough deal and the right opportunity, you bet it is well worth it.
Yeah, I think too, I do think something you brought up is really, really important. That is focusing on those industries where you have specific, credible evidence that you have helped. Like if I'm going to reach out to somebody in the manufacturing industry and it's a brand new prospect for me, I may use, the actual stats that I took from another company. If I can get the company to agree to do that, great. If not, I can do it in a more generic way. Like I've been working in the manufacturing industry for quite a few years. The last 3 companies we worked with, we've been able to drive their sales by over 30%. If you can get specific, that is going to be attention getting. If it's like Terry Brock said, it's truly the problem that they face.
Well, this is why you've got to stay in the space that you really know. I mean, don't just sit there and play, I'm going to do a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. Stay in your space. Bart Ratliff is jumping in. Love hearing it. You're right. Relationships matter. And think about this. If I can focus in on a couple of industries, begin to develop relationships with people in various companies and other areas, it is amazing. Brent Tillman's calling it multi-threading. It certainly is. That's exactly what we're doing. You develop these, and then what happens is people begin talking about you. So when you call, and I've had this happen many, many times, I've reached out to somebody, I'm trying to get this engagement, and they've heard of me. They've heard of me through, maybe it's through this podcast, maybe it's through a book, maybe it's through somebody else. But again, we've got to create enough relationships out there that we have equity that begins to grow for us.
Yeah, Mark, what's the question this week?
Oh, yes. The question comes from Leo in Sydney. He says, hey, congrats on 6 years. Sales Logic's a great show. Well, yeah, we know it's a great show. Wondering here down under. I'm sorry. I had to throw that in. Wondering here down under what your best strategies are for getting to decision makers, and how do you get more customer facing time? CFT, we've talked about that before. So what are some techniques that you use to get more CFT?
I love what Terry Terry Brock is jumping in here with. He said, we can now use Gemini to create special song just for the person based on what they like and are interested in knowing. Create a song in about 2 minutes. Terry, what this makes me think of is humor is a great way to get people's attention. Humor is a great way to make people, engage. And I do think a lot, one thing I love about video, and I use video a lot, is that video is an opportunity to get your energy across, to get your approachability across, to get your enthusiasm across. And they can be really short and really sweet. And so I love what Terry is saying here. Just inject a little personality into what you're doing.
Well, again, because it's the distinguishing difference that each of us have is our own personality. It's interesting. A lot of listeners are saying, well, I sell a commodity. And people could argue, well, what Mayor and Mark sell is commodity. They sell keynote speeches. No, they're not, because they may appear, but the difference is us. You have to put your personality into it. So you're right. I mean, if you want to get to that decision maker, they have to see you as somebody different. They have to see, are you worthy of getting time on their calendar? CFT, customer facing time. Nobody's going to give time to somebody if they're going to share something that they can find or read in an email or find on a website. No, they will give time to people who they feel are going to bring value to them. In other words, is this going to be a discussion that is going to be prudent and relative to the challenges that they have going on? That's who they're going to give time to.
Yeah, I love what Brenda is saying here. She said multi-threading may create a longer runway, but short runways are how deals abort before they ever leave the ground, which I think is another really important piece of customer-facing time, is you have to be patient. You really have to understand that at the beginning of the sales cycle, you can't push the customer. That you do not control the relationship at this point. Once somebody buys from you, they love you, they trust you. If you have done it right, you do control the relationship. You can be aggressive with them. You can do everything because they love you and have bought into you. And that is a very different methodology than the way most salespeople have been trained. We're taught to be aggressive and pushy at the front end. And on the front end, it has all got to be around this idea of what can I give this person to help them be more successful?
I love that. As we said that, I couldn't help but think of Harvey Mackay's second book, Dig Your Well Before You Need the Water. You know, you need water. That's too late to dig a well. You got to do it now. Hey, Bill Snow, great for you to jump in. I had a great conversation with him this week. And yes, it is humor. Humor can work, but you got to understand what the right tools are. Yes.
Yeah, Bill. Mark just talks, and then it all comes out in a book. So actually, you were kind of dead on. You were kind of dead on there. You know, one thing we've not talked about to get more customer facing time is referrals. Is to really go back to. I just sent one out this morning. Somebody was on my podcast, and I wrote back to them, and I said, we sent them all the information to promote the podcast, and I just reached back out and I said, if you know of anybody who would be a great guest or of any podcasts that I could be on, I would love the recommendation. And it worked. Now, I could cold call those podcasts that she connected me to, but if she makes the connection, it's going to be easy for me to come on as a guest. So working and asking for those referrals.
Well, and with that, then we're giving referrals. And I know you give a tremendous, you and I both give a tremendous amount of referrals, not only to each other, but to other people. And that's the value, because again, it's creating those relationships. I go back to Bryn's comment, multi-threading. The more relationships you have, and this is why you got to play in a tight space. Don't sit there and think that you can play with this company in this industry, this company in this industry. No, stay tight, stay focused. That is how you bring more value. And that's ultimately how you're going to get more CFT, because again, you reach out to somebody, and if you're a known entity in the industry, they're going to be much more inclined to have a conversation with you. Oh, CFT, customer facing time, than somebody who they have no clue who you are.
Yeah. I also think, a big thing that you need to think about when you're reaching out with people is, we talked about this a little bit, but creating some sense of urgency around it. Like I get emails a lot where things are of interest to me, but they're not, I don't need to schedule an appointment for those in the next month. And they need to give me a reason to schedule those in the next month. And I don't mean a reason by I'll lose the deal. I hate that stuff. I hate it when you push me that if I only going to get a 20% discount if I act like in the next 10 minutes or something. I'm talking about the fact of what would it do for me in the first quarter? What would it do in increasing my productivity and decreasing my stress? How could this make my life better, my life easier, make me money, save me money, give me peace of mind? But you got to give me a reason to want to elevate you to the top of my schedule.
I love what you're saying there. And there's two things I want to respond to that. We can have a lot of things that have interest, but do they really have intent? In other words, does the person have intent to buy it? And you have to create a level of urgency with that. Now, to help us understand that, got to realize that companies today, they're only solving their top one or two issues. I mean, people can come to me, a lot of things will interest me. That's great. But I'm only dealing with the top one or two issues on my plate. And that's the same thing with any company, with any individual. This is where you've got to do your homework. This is why you got to stay focused in an industry. And your questioning up front needs to understand, what are those challenges that you're working on? The sooner I know what those are, the better I'm going to be in a position to be able to help you or refer you to somebody else who could help you.
Lucky, I love the fact that you have a nickname, because I'm not sure I could handle your first name. So that just saved me from butchering it. But you're exactly right. You should be the unique person knowing the industry. You've got to be that person who knows the industry almost better, probably better than your client does.
I love that comment. And again, this is why you also got to understand, hey, who are your clients' customers? In other words, I always say, know your customers' customers. And can you bring insights to your customers about their customers that they don't know? If you can do that, wow, you are going to be a person of value, because now what you're doing is you're helping them do their job better. Because remember, we as a salesperson, we are not successful until those we sell to are successful. So it's in our interest to understand our customer's customer. So when we talk about how do we get to the decision maker, how do we get the decision maker's attention, understand who it is that they're dealing with. That's how we're going to get there. Yeah. Hey, yeah.
Good. I was going to say, what's the book?
That's what I was just going to say. Robert Cialdini, Influence. Well, I'll tell you what, it's been out for a long time, but it's one of those books that you got to go back and read again and again and again.
Yeah, I put it on the list today because that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm going back and reading it because it's so good. Somebody mentioned it at a meeting I was at, and I thought, I haven't read Influence for a number of years, but if you really want to know how to get through the door with customers, how to really make a difference around that stuff, then Influence is such a great book.
It really is. And there's so many principles in there that from the day the book was written to today, still just as relevant as ever. Hey, you ready for the lightning round?
Yeah. And I want to invite the audience to jump in on the lightning round.
Oh, wow. We haven't done that before. That's great.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Okay. Top 10 best ways to close out the first quarter.
I think that you should physically, like literally pick up the telephone and call everybody in your pipeline, not send an email, not send a text, not put them on your newsletter list. I think you should call them.
And call them now. And at the top of the list, your existing customers, because there's undoubtedly more business that you can probably get from them. Again, I love to go where I've already proven myself because there's going to be more business there that I can get, or I can get quick referrals.
Yeah. Number 3, I think that if you want to close out the first quarter strong, you need to take a gut-wrenchingly, sometimes painful, honest look at the first quarter. Are you on budget? Are you where you need to be to meet, but hopefully exceed your goals?
Exactly. And with that, simplify your offerings. The closer we get to the end of the quarter, remember, a confused customer does not buy. So you've got to make sure that your product offering, whatever it might be, is as simple for the customer to say yes to as possible.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that and say that you need to take any friction out of the buying process at all. Go back and look and see where deals opted out and why they opted out.
And with that opted out, there are probably some customers who said no to you, or you know what? The no was they're just not ready to buy. Guess what? You need to be reaching back out to those people because now they could be ready to buy.
Yeah, and go back and look at the deals that you did land and where you have delivered. Go back and ask those clients for some referrals.
Use other people in your database, in your connections. In other words, you may be connected to somebody who has a relationship. Hey, can you use them to help you get a deal over the top? Use other resources.
Yeah, Gina Carr says, top 10, be clear on your goals. It's a great time to review and say, am I really clear on my goals? And I'm going to add a little to that. We're recording this at the time that the Supreme Court made a decision on tariffs yesterday. And I think, kind of being clear on your goals, you need to go back and look, have things changed for your customer? And will they be different going into the second quarter? This decision on tariffs may or may not impact a lot of industries, and you got to understand the challenges of your customers are changing.
Oh, I love that. And along with that, that means just breathe, take a deep breath. I was on the phone this week with a number of people, and they're a little bit concerned, but they've got big opportunities for next quarter. Okay, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Play the long game. There are times that we can't quite get a quarter across the board, across the goal line, but we're setting ourselves up. Don't put yourself into such a hole making this quarter that you destroy yourself for the out quarters.
Yeah. So what Bill is saying here is compare your IPC, he corrected himself in another, to what's actually working. That's right. Are you focused on the right target? Are you getting through the door? Which leads me to the other piece is you need to do a quick seeds, weeds, and needs on the quarter. What did you do in the first quarter that moved the needle? What do you need to do in the second quarter? Continue to do. What didn't work? What do you need to quit doing? And what do you need to be doing in the second quarter that you're not doing now that could really take things next level?
And hey, keep in mind, do not have in any regard a scarcity mindset. As people get down to the end of the quarter, they start to have a scarcity mindset. You want to have a mindset of abundance, because when you have a mindset of abundance, you're going to listen, you're going to hear, you're going to see things differently. And the scarcity mindset creates a panic, and panic does not help when it comes to sales.
Yeah. All right, Mark. We probably need to wrap this up. I think we could go. I think we could go on all day. What a great audience. What a great topic. And yeah.
Hey, and by the way, if you're having a sales kickoff meeting, any meeting, reach out to Meridith, reach out to myself. We'd love to be part of it. I've got a new book out, Integrity First Selling. Love to come in and talk to you. And I know Mayor's got so much great stuff. So anyway, hey, with that, we want to say thank you for listening to Sales Logic this week. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. Something we've said is earned you a single dollar. Consider telling a friend about our show, because it's how we grow when we help you grow. I'm Mark Hunter.
And I'm Meredith Elliott Powell.
Remember, when you sell with confidence and integrity,
all of this uncertainty suddenly becomes your competitive advantage.
And the sale becomes logical.
All right. We will see you all right back here next week for another episode of Sales Logic. Please remember, reach out, send us your ideas, your questions for the show, because the show is about one person, and that is you, helping you sell more effectively. We'll see you right back here next week. Have a great weekend. Whoops, sorry, I did that wrong. Cancel, stay. I got out of the studio instead of ending the stream.